Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, your host, and we have with us a brand new House of Delegate candidate tonight from the 50th District, which is Prince William County and Manassas City, and his name is Richard Cabellos. Richard, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, I want to find out a little bit about you. I know that you went to the Virginia Commonwealth University,
yes.
And I know that you work out at the Southgate Community Center,
Yes.
which is not far from where I live,
Oh, great.
in Reston. So
Yes.
what else do we need to know about you?
All right. Well, grew up here in Northern Virginia. Grew up in Vienna, actually. Vienna, Virginia, not too far from here. And my parents are originally my dad is from Peru, my mom's from Honduras. And so grew up in a very close-knit family. My parents came to this country about 50 years ago. And they started small businesses in the area. My mom is a hairdresser and cosmetologist, and my dad learned the trade of restaurant ownership. And he later on in his career, he flipped houses. He renovated old houses and sold them. And me and my sister Tricia is an entrepreneur herself. Her and her husband own a couple businesses in the area. And I was actually the first in my family to go to college at VCU. My parents were very humble, had very humble beginnings when they came to the United States. But through a lot of hard work and dedication, they gave the best they could for me and my sister. And they loved education. They wanted only the best for us, and that's why they really struggled. They made me do what I had to do to graduate from college, because I was the first one in the family to graduate from college. I've been with Fairfax County for almost 8 years now. I love being a public servant. Like you said, I'm a director of a community center out in Reston, Virginia. I help youth, teens, and senior citizens. And as diverse as Fairfax County is, I do a lot of ESL classes for families there in the area. And it's a great job. You listen to families, what they're going through and how to help them. And that's something that I think I can bring to my district in Manassas. I live in Manassas with my wife and my son. My wife Yolanda, my son Cruz. I couldn't be doing this without them. They're very supportive of the campaign. And yeah, very excited about Manassas and trying to go back to priorities in government, and that's why I decided to run for government. For a state delegate.
State delegate.
Yeah, for local government.
Well, you've actually gotten some awards. You've had the Outstanding Performance Award from the Fairfax County Park Authority for a multicultural program that you developed. You've also got the A. Heath Onthank Award from the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors for advancing and improving public service in Fairfax County related to the work that your community center is doing on outreach. So you've had some great success there. And then you have been appointed to the Governor's Virginia Latino Advisory Committee as well. So you've got, not only are you a public servant, you apparently are a very good one.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Recognized all the way up by the governor to be on his advisory commission. So those are all very great accomplishments as well. So.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, it's truly been an honor to carry my dad's name around with the hard work that they've done to this country. Their American dream when they first came to this country, they didn't expect all this. They wanted just a better life for them and, helping their families back at home. But when they started a family here with my sister and I, that's what they strived for. You're like, if you're going to do something, be good at it. But most importantly, don't forget your humble beginnings. And my dad, he was raised in a very quaint town in the Andes Mountains, and my mom in a very small colonial town in Honduras. It's called Santa Lucia, and my dad's from a town called Mache. And they've been very successful in the United States, and they sacrificed a lot for my sister and me to accomplish our dreams. And that dream 50 years ago was reachable. One of the things I see now, it's a lot of immigrant families and just families in general. American families just struggling, to put food on the table. One of the things why I decided to run for office is, when I talk about education, I like investing in education. Studies have shown, especially early childhood education, studies have shown that if you have early childhood education or people have access to it, children are able to succeed more at school and have a better chance to go to college. You know, our current delegate in my district of the 50th has, voted to take funding away from education. So these are things that I truly care about, and yes, as a public servant in Fairfax County, and just in general, the jobs I've had with nonprofits and working for two governors, actually Mark Warner and Governor Kane, my duty was definitely to make sure that our participants and the residents we work with, have all those opportunities to get ahead in their livelihood. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've also seen some things that you've mentioned about trade and apprenticeship programs as well.
Yeah, one thing, when I talk about jobs, we need to bring more jobs into Virginia. That entails a lot of being inclusive. We want employers to know that their employees, when they come and work for them, that there's no discriminatory laws. Families they want a good quality education. When you bring jobs, you need to have good education, public schools, so parents can send their kids to, but also making sure that transportation is fixed as well. And most importantly is children, young adults who want to prepare for these jobs coming, they should have the education. That means good community colleges or good colleges, and colleges that adults can afford.
Well, that is a huge question in Virginia. I read something just this morning in the paper talking about how unaffordable our colleges have become.
Right.
Do you think the state really has a role to play in trying to bring down or control the tuition costs?
Absolutely. I mean, 3 out of 5 kids, young adults, are in our community college system. And every year they keep cutting funds for public schools. It has to be affordable. And that's something, as a state delegate, I'll definitely make sure that we do invest money into our public schools. Yes.
Well, you also mentioned the need, particularly with respect for jobs, about infrastructure and the transportation. We had a big transportation bill come through. What did you think of that?
It was the first time in close to 30 years, Republicans, Democrats, even a Republican governor came together, voted on a bipartisan bill, funding for transportation. That is important, and my current delegate voted against it. These are the things where I talk about common sense. Where is it, parents, families, they want to get to work on time in the morning. They want to be able to come home, take their kids to a ball game, or sit down at a dinner table, and break bread with their children every now and then. Mm-hmm. Those are things that the voters in my district really care about, and the transportation bill was the first step in the right direction.
And it does sort of give one hope that maybe the two sides can work together on big issues. Absolutely,
and when you're part of a team, you know how people complain in Congress, the U.S. Congress, that they can't agree to anything, and that shouldn't be happening in Richmond. We need to start caring more about where our priorities are. And absolutely, also with transportation, a key issue in transportation is also you can bring all the roads that you want, expand roads, but that only brings more cars. Right. So what's important to follow up with that is public transportation. One of the things that we need to also look into is investing in Metro to Prince William County. My district, like I said, is Bristol and Gainesville, and Manassas City. They don't even have public transportation on the weekends. So these are the things that we need to fight for, locally issues. These are what the voters are craving, and that's why I said we need to get back to priorities, we need to get back to common sense.
Well, it'd be interesting to get Metro out into your district, because you're getting it over near where you're working.
Yeah, in Reston,
right?
No, I know Supervisor Hudgens, and she's been working really hard there to get the Reston, and that's bringing new jobs. That's bringing better access to public transportation. More jobs that people in her district can be able to go to DC, go to Arlington with no problems. These are the things that we need to work on. That's common sense. That's making sure that we invest in our residents and in our citizens for our district and the whole Commonwealth.
Well, now you also mentioned in connection with jobs and companies feeling that their employees will be welcomed here.
Yes.
We in Virginia don't really have that reputation at the moment. We have an attorney general who is suing scientists. We've got anti-gay legislation every single session. There's another bill. We've got all the issues affecting women and reproductive rights. Where do you stand on all those kinds of issues?
I stand firm that government shouldn't be in the business of telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body. These are stark contrasts between me and my current delegate, and they're stuck on some type of ideology and their own personal ideologies. That shouldn't be part of government. When we talk about being inclusive about jobs, you're right, we don't need these discriminatory laws that pass. Employers need to make sure that their employees feel safe and welcomed into the Commonwealth. And yes, I stand firm on marriage equality. I stand firm on respecting individuals, LGBT rights. I mean, being all inclusive. We talked about the current Attorney General. When he was state senator, he tried to pass a bill to ban a different language being spoken in your workplace. These are the type of things that Latino voters need, or other immigrant voters that can vote now should pay attention to, because we're going in the wrong direction. Priorities need to be firm on bringing jobs, making sure we have a high quality education, and fixing our transportation, and being an inclusive Virginia instead of a divided Virginia.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I also saw that you mentioned someplace was about green economy kind of jobs.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of the solar power, wind power type thing?
There's a lot of new jobs we can look into, solar, wind, and we get back to education too. If we're going to have these jobs, we need to invest making sure that young adults who go into the colleges are learning these new trades, and that they have the funding to be able to learn those new trades, to find those new jobs. So that is something very important to me. We need, like I said, we need to invest more in new green jobs, but also make sure that our workforce is prepared for that as well.
Well, let me ask you something which is sort of the opposite of green jobs, and that's uranium mining, because I understand that your current delegate is in favor of lifting the moratorium on uranium mining. Where do you stand on that?
And he's they're also one of his biggest donors.
I'm so shocked.
Yeah, shocker there. No, but what's important about that, yes, the environmental impact that will have on where these mines would happen. You need to make sure that the environment is protected. We need to make sure that our waterways are assured. If that was to happen, we definitely have to make sure the safety of the workforce that does do that, but also the most important, the safety and the climate that our children are going to be able to have to live through these things. You know?
Well, that is one of the issues, I think, with the uranium mining. I keep reading that our climate is not conducive to safety.
It's not. It's not, no. And what's more important about that is making sure that our kids have safe water and clean air to breathe.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you, Richard, for coming. Richard Cabellos.
Thank you.
In the 50th.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I look forward to your election.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
Before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
My son,
My sister-in-law.
were all murdered September 11th.
help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember
what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty
and justice
for all.
In America, there's either room for everyone or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Welcome back. This is Bettina Lawton. I am your host of Inside Scoop Virginia, and we have with us now Traci Dippert. She is running for the Virginia House of Delegates. She is a brand new candidate. It's the 30th district, which is Madison, Orange County, and parts of Culpeper, and she is running against an incumbent Republican. And welcome. I'm glad you could make it all the way up here.
I am glad we made it too.
Well, let me find out a little bit about you and tell everybody who you are. Okay. You are an educator. So
I am.
You have degrees in education. Is that how this works?
Yes, I have been a music teacher for 16 years. I have 5 years of education, including a master's degree. And I teach general music preschool through 7th grade. And so it's a nice variety and a lot of change. I teach in a wonderful district, Rappahannock County, nestled up on the Blue Ridge Mountains. Mm-hmm. And it's in 3rd grade I decided I wanted to be a teacher. In 9th grade I decided I wanted to be a music teacher. And so I was lucky to find my lot early in life. And so things are going well, and this is a new venture for me.
Well, and you've been a teacher for like 16 years, I read someplace, so you've got a lot of experience in that area.
I do.
So why would you run for the House of Delegates? I mean, I think actually working with young children is probably a good thing, actually.
You would think.
Other than that, why?
At least you have the patience, right?
Right, exactly. You sort of know how to deal with sort of people who are misbehaving all the time.
Well, I am chair of the Culpeper County Democratic Committee, and one of my jobs has been to find someone to run against Mr. Scott. And so I've been trying to do that. I couldn't find anybody to do that. And so eventually I just came to the realization that it was supposed to be me.
Okay. And how's it going?
It's going amazingly well. My opponent has run unopposed for the last 8 years. Most people don't care for that. He has proven that he has lost touch with the district. He started out as a moderate, which was okay 10 years ago, but he's moved farther and farther to the right every election that he's run unopposed, which is the reason why I'm running, which is the reason I'm getting a lot of support inside the district as well as outside the district. I decided to run last year. He came home from that horrendous legislative session last year. They came home without a budget. They had tried to push through they did push through the aggressive women's legislation in regards to the transvaginal ultrasound, the personhood bill. He came home and he put in an article in the local newspaper, and in it he did not use the words jobs, economy, infrastructure, or education. It was that moment that I decided that the voters needed another choice. It's really not about me, it's about the voters and deserving good representation.
So do you think that he got complacent over those 8 years of being unopposed?
He's actually quoted as saying he had to vote that way so that he could keep his committee appointments.
Wow, okay. So that's a lot of party discipline there as opposed to personal beliefs.
Exactly, and at some point you have to decide what you're standing for. Are you standing for a better committee? Are you standing up for the citizens that voted you in?
So let's talk about education, because obviously that's where you are. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. I read that your opponent does not have a very good rating by the, I think it was the Virginia Education Association.
Failing grade of 55 over the last 2 years, which is interesting because he voted in favor of labeling schools A through F.
So he got an F.
Exactly.
Interesting. So what's your plans when you get elected for education? What are the top education issues that you see out there?
Well, one of the first things we need to do is we need to get VRS solvent. That's the Virginia retirement system. Okay. The governor a couple of years ago borrowed a lot of money from that.
He was balancing the budget or something,
he was,
as I recall.
And he's also had a surplus the last 4 years, but they're not paying it back at an increased rate with the surplus they have. Actually, they borrowed it and are paying it back at a lower interest rate than if they had left it alone to begin with. In addition, some of the investors for VRS just got big bonuses. That's their job. When I do my job, I get my normal paycheck. I don't get a bonus. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure that the right things are being done with VRS, because as a public servant, I get paid modestly, but there was always a nice retirement system as part of your package, and we need to ensure that, because Virginia is an amazing state, but if we don't start increasing our quality of education, Virginia is one of the 10 wealthiest states in the country. Average teacher pay is 49th. So we need to do better, because they'll go to Ohio, they'll go to Pennsylvania, they'll go to Maryland. Our students deserve quality teachers.
Okay. Now, what about the issue of affordability, particularly at the college levels? We're seeing a lot now saying they just can't afford it. And Virginia is one of those states that's cited as having, we've got all of these, wonderful universities, but the costs are really getting out of hand.
Yeah, we need to rein those in, and we need to see where the money is going from, or we're going to, rather. A quality education doesn't have to cost lots, and I am a sports person. I played sports in high school all the way up through, but a large portion of the money the colleges make is going towards sports, and we need to look at that. And I am all for sports, but we have to make it balanced. We also need to increase our career and technology education. Not everybody needs to go to a 2 or 4 year school. So we have lots of jobs which need training, HVAC, carpenter, electrical, all of those things. And those jobs are valued. Everybody loves a good car mechanic. Everybody loves, a good person who comes and does their job well and knows what they're doing. And so there's value at every level. So we just have to make sure that we keep Virginia's colleges going, and also make sure that Virginia students get first crack at our colleges too. That has been talked about as well. How the colleges make more money from out of state. But what is our goal? Our goal is to educate, first is to educate the students of our own state and to keep them in our state. They're our best resource. They're our talent pool.
Well, I read someplace that the justification the colleges use for having larger numbers of folks from out of state was somehow that the extra cost of tuition that those folks were paying was somehow subsidizing the in-state folks. I'm not sure how that really plays, or if there's actually any good data on that.
I'm not positive on that. That would be definitely something I would look into. As a candidate, I don't have every single answer, but I'm curious enough, and I do teamwork well enough that I would be able to work with the right people to find those answers and make the right recommendations.
Okay. Now, where do you stand, because you mentioned the transvaginal ultrasound issues. We know that was just a debacle. We were on the late shows and jokes. So on women's reproductive health, are you in favor of trying to have the TARP regulations that regulate the clinics revoked, repealed?
Definitely revoked. The purpose wasn't what they said, and those clinics provide so many services, and abortions are just a small part of them, but low-cost birth control as well as cancer screenings. And my opponent voted against funding for those sorts of things. And Planned Parenthood actually prevents more pregnancies. And so we need to make that available to everyone. I used it when I was in college, and it's a wonderful, wonderful service. We need to do better. I am pro-women, I'm pro-woman. We need to make sure that healthcare decisions are made between the woman, her family, and her doctor, and they need quality and affordable and accessible services.
Well, I've always sort of said to folks, just because you're closing the clinic doesn't mean that the health needs disappear.
Right.
They have to get channeled someplace, and that's where we lose sight of it.
Correct.
We lose sight that we're not really making any progress. We're just closing a building.
Pap smears, mammograms, all of those preventative and cancer screening are important for women's health.
Okay. Let's also talk then about the jobs. You talked a little bit about not everybody needs the 2 and the 4 years. How do we get more jobs into your district?
Everything is interconnected, and we talk about everything like it's separate: transportation, education, infrastructure, healthcare, but they're really all connected. If we want to have a prosperous 30th district, we have to invest in all of these. Education, I believe, is the cornerstone. If we have a good education system, businesses will come to the 30th district for 2 reasons. 1, because they have quality schools to put their children in. 2, because they're going to have a quality workforce. Okay, so now we bring businesses into the 30th district. What does that do? That raises our tax base. What do we do with the tax base? We build better schools, hire more teachers, reduce class sizes. We also make sure that the infrastructure can handle the population that we have.
And how is it, because you're down, the whole Culpeper area is the Route 95 area, which is always backlogged.
Actually,
and
we're east of
that.
95, yeah. About an hour southwest of Dulles.
Okay.
An hour southwest of Dulles.
So do you have particular transportation goals for that part of the state?
There are a couple of things that are very important. We just opened a new high school, and the high school is on the other side of 29 in Culpeper County. And so buses and students are driving across there and on there and slowing down and turning. So we just got the money for an overpass, which is extremely important. I have been terrified since that school opened up that we were going to have a tragedy in regards to a teacher, a student, a family, a bus. And so that's one of the things that we need to make sure that we keep our students safe. And that would be one of the first things that we do it right, we do it well, and we do it in a timely way.
Okay. Let's talk about uranium mining.
Why?
Where do you stand? Why? Well, because it's one of those issues that seems to keep coming up.
It does.
And a lot of folks seem to have very strong views on those. So where do you?
Well, the answer to that for me is the Virginia fault line, because I lived in upstate New York. I grew in upstate New York. We didn't really have those sorts of things, and I didn't think Virginia did either. And so that fault line, I was sitting at my desk the day before the first day of school when that earthquake came. And I don't know if everybody remembers, but an earthquake, you hear it first before you feel it, which is awfully interesting. But they haven't convinced me that it's safe yet. And with the fault line and with the concerns over what they're going to do with the waste and the possibilities of it getting into the water are just two big concerns for me. I think we can go other ways when it comes to energy. Solar and water in Virginia are two amazingly wonderful green energies that we need to be expanding on.
Okay. Voter identification bills. I saw that mentioned someplace in connection with you. Where are you on that? Because we have a new one that goes into effect next year.
Next year, yes. And what I need everybody to understand is whatever you used last year to vote, you can use this year to vote. Nothing changes for this time. Voter fraud is very, very, very minute, and it's really an answer looking for a problem. If the state of Virginia gives you something that says you can vote, that should be good enough.
Okay.
If they want something with a picture, they need to put it on there.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Traci, for coming. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands. Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex. Half of the people in the world living with AIDS are women. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we can change this reality. Let's strive for a world free of violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. At Volunteers of America, we don't just help people, we help people help themselves. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No.
127 consecutive. Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
Welcome back. This is Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, your host, and we now have an experienced delegate with us. We have Vivian Watts. She has been a member of the House of Delegates since, I think, 1996. Is that right, Vivian?
Actually, I also had 4 years before that. I was served first from 82 through 86. Then I was persuaded to leave the House when I became Secretary of Transportation and Public Safety for Governor Belials. Then I was out totally for 6 and came back in 96. So it's about 20 of the last 30 years.
Wow, that's amazing. You have no doubt seen quite a difference between what it is today and when you started.
It's been quite a span, yes. I do miss some of the good, robust dialogue. So many more things these days are being decided on litmus test votes, and so that the dialogue that you need to have, I can understand being outnumbered 2 to 1 in the House of Delegates, why something is going to pass, but let's make it the best possible bill. Let's look at the unintended consequences, and so this is actually one of the reasons why I've stayed in elective office, because I really feel that the breadth and the depth of my experience should be part of that dialogue. And if I don't stay in, then we won't have that kind of hopefully tempering and truly trying to help new members. We have a very large percentage of the House have served for less than 6 years.
Wow, I didn't realize there were that many of the new ones. Well, let's talk about, because you were Secretary of Transportation. We had a transportation bill last year. So how did you feel that came out?
Well, actually, Bettina, we started with a bill that was very, very seriously flawed. To propose that you're going to totally do away with the gas tax. I mean, the Wall Street Journal to Grover Norquist said this is a bad idea. And yet there was finally the willingness, and I think part of it was driven by the fact that for the first time in a long time, we had lost our ranking as the #1 place to do business. And solely because of congestion. And as I pointed out on the House floor, when statistics came out, that the area with the best traffic patterns is Raleigh-Durham. That's our competition. So there were a number of reasons besides the fact, as we know here in Northern Virginia, how serious our transportation problems are. And the stars finally aligned. Back to our opening comments, the bill, first of all, is a substantial bill, an ongoing bill, $1.3 billion a year, which is of the magnitude that we need. Secondly, that it does have substantial money for Northern Virginia that will stay here and that will be controlled here, so there's no more arguments about going down to Richmond and never seeing that money again. But thirdly, going back to our opening comments, for me personally, after so many years of trying to get people to understand the seriousness of the financial problems that we were in, to be trusted as part of the dialogue and to be a very active participant behind those closed doors late at night, trying to figure out how we could improve the bill and what we needed to do to take this opportunity and get the best possible bill that we could out of all of the votes that were available.
What would you like to see improved in it, since it was clearly a compromise endeavor? Do you have ideas coming back into the next session what you'd like to try and do?
There are two areas. One, a very small part of the financing is the tax on hybrids, and I do hear from constituents about that. And so, as I have responded, this was an idea that the governor had thrown in. He took what had been a $50 tax annual fee on just electric vehicles, and he had expanded it to $100 on all hybrids, alternative fuel vehicles, and we got it back down to $64. But the real point is, as I've said to constituents, what we need to do is tie it to CAFE standards, because the reason it exists is that as long as the vehicle of any kind is on the road, it's taking up space. It's causing the backup, or it's part of the backup at the signal light. So you have to have a way then to look at how you collect a appropriate user fee if you aren't buying gasoline, and that again would tie an annual fee to CAFE standards.
Now tell us what CAFE standards are. I'm
so
pretty sure it has nothing to do with lattes.
Basically, it's miles per gallon of gasoline consumed, and obviously there are hybrid vehicles that use more gas than there are so fuel efficient vehicles that are using half the gas that a large SUV hybrid might use. So this will be one of those challenges. The second challenge isn't necessarily legislative changes, although there might be some little changes, wordsmithing that we need to do. But we need to make sure that for Northern Virginia, the way in which we choose the projects, the way in which they are funded, really fit the priority needs, both to address congestion, which of course includes transit, but also to make sure that we are able to make the appropriate decisions that reflect problems that may be caused because of safety, problems that might be caused because of land use patterns. This gives us a very long-awaited opportunity to have local governments tie transportation improvements more closely to their land use decisions than we've ever had before.
Well, I read someplace, I think this is right, that Delegate Marshall has filed some lawsuit saying that the allocation of money in Northern Virginia doesn't address enough of the congestion issues, and that's how it was supposed to be measured, and now he's filed some lawsuit to stop all of this. I mean, what do you think of those efforts?
This again will be perhaps a little wordsmithing here and there as we determine how you measure congestion mitigation, but it will be an ongoing development of how that is measured. It can't be limited just to 20 major projects, because congestion starts the minute you get out of your driveway.
Right.
You try to get out of the neighborhood onto an arterial road. So as we have 4 levels of funding, 2 of which are must address congestion mitigation. Top level is state funds that will now finally begin flowing back to Northern Virginia. They'll deal more with long-standing systems problems. It'll be about 2 or 3 years before we see much of a return, because the first $300 million is going to extend rail to Dulles, and we're also phasing in the statewide taxes. But then you have the local revenue, 70% spent on large regional projects of regional impact. 30% then is returned to local governments based on where it's collected, and that's a major source of funding. It still must address congestion mitigation. And then number 4 is local governments, by this law, must essentially match that 30% out of their own revenues. Now those revenues can be more broadly spent on particular issues that might deal with a signal light or a guardrail, but not maintenance. And so that with those 3 combinations, we have very substantial funding to be able to address the wide variety of needs. And I really believe that Delegate Marshall's suit is rather specious as far as how that system of measuring will be determined.
Well, Vivian, you don't have an opponent this year, so are you out on the doors? Are you campaigning hard for this, or are you just coasting on in?
Never, ever, ever do I coast. I have learned over the years, and fortunately most of my elected office career has been in basically a swing district, and I get so much out of going door to door and really listening to a wide variety of voices. But I also, by going door to door every 2 years, no matter what my opposition is, I am getting a feel for neighborhoods and for people's concerns. I certainly get significant mail from folks, but a problem or an issue that rises to that level is different from the day in, day out life of people that you see and hear some of the realities of having a developmentally disabled child, of a elderly person living alone, and or just problems of the neighborhood and some of the impacts of development. All those things are important for me to constantly hear. I sort of have my own private little poll every 2 years about what's really of concern out there.
So what are you hearing on the doors this year?
Very significantly different, Bettina, from any other year. And the two issues that people bring up to me, and I never try to lead the conversation. Do you have any questions or concerns? Is my standard line. So what I'm hearing that I've never heard before is obviously very deep concern about ethics. And those concerns will come from individuals who are what I'll call Ralph Nader common cause, by God, do it right, to people who come from fine Virginia families who may be living in a very modest home, but that heritage, that tradition of service with honor and integrity, it really makes them angry what they are reading in the press. And so that is something that I'm hearing loud and clear, and obviously we must address the issue. But then the other thing that I'm hearing is women's health issues. In the past, if a woman asked me, and I mean every year, if a woman asked me, it were one of two situations. Either she was significantly older, and by God, she was not going to have her granddaughter go through what she had experienced or seen. Any other person who asked me about it was typically a woman of any age who was pro-life. Because everybody else took basic women's health issues for granted, that we didn't have to go through these very narrow definitions and denying services or significantly delaying those services and causing health crisis. And certainly their awareness of issues like the ultrasound and the vaginal probe standing in the way of good medical practice, particularly women who are delaying childbearing, professional women to their 30s and 40s. They know how important it is that any problems that they have in pregnancy, that the doctor is able to give them the proper medical services.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah. No. Sam's. No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done. D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right, Ed.
What are those? Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time!
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired. You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs. Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, you know. Not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. A message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital Association.
Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome. This is Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, your host, and we have with us now Mike Futrell. Michael is a candidate down in the 2nd District, which is down in the Quantico Marine Base area, Prince William County. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, that reaches the east side of Route 1 in Woodbridge down into Stafford County. It does include Quantico.
So that's a long district then.
Absolutely, absolutely. 54% of the district's in Prince William County, and the other part is in Stafford County.
Okay. Now, you tell me why you're running, first of all.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and to have this conversation with you. You know, it's a great show, and I looked forward to having the opportunity to come out here and talk with you today. You know, going back to why I actually decided to run. You know, I've been working in my community for so long, and I've been talking to the families who felt like their voice wasn't being heard. They felt like they didn't have the leadership that was needed for us to continue to move forward. And when I talk with these families, they felt like they were in a position where they needed someone to stand up. They needed someone to step up and say, we want to be able to make a difference. And with that, you know, I looked into the person who was currently in the seat. And I realized that he was only focusing on one segment of the population, and the entire district as a whole did not feel like they were being represented. And at the end of the day, this is not about partisan politics. This is about how can we best impact the families throughout the House District 2, and that's why I decided to run.
Okay, and how long have you actually lived down there?
Since 2008. I moved here in 2008 from Ohio. I moved out here as a pharmaceutical rep, you know, so working in the healthcare industry. I currently work with Novo Nordisk. You know, I'm a diabetes care specialist for them. So, you know, we have a lot of functions when it comes to impacting the community. You know, again, that was one of those strategic decisions that I made because I wanted to say, how can I best impact this overall community? And so having the opportunity to work with diabetics throughout the area was a great solution.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Now, you have your education, you get a degree from Lindsey Wilson College. Where is that? Is that
Lindsey Wilson College, right. Lindsey Wilson College is in the middle of Kentucky. You have no idea where it is unless you pass there by accident.
Oh, okay, all right.
But great education system there. You know, what I learned and the skills that I was able to bring, I wanted to be a teacher. And they had a great education program. So when I made the decision on where I was going to go to college, not just because of their athletic program, but because of their education system, Lindsey Wilson College was a great choice for me, a great opportunity. So with that, they came calling, and I said, you know what, this is where I want to be.
Well, I read something that said when you got out of college, you worked in some I don't know if it was an inner city school, but it was a poverty type school.
Yes, in Dayton, Ohio.
Wow.
You know, gave me the opportunity to teach math and science for 5th and 6th graders.
God, that's challenging.
That's a very challenging time frame. You know, when I did my practicum in college, I worked with high school students. So being able to see the difference in the children and seeing the progression, not just intellectually, but emotionally, was a great challenge. You know, you start to see how not just the impact is on the individual teacher, but on classrooms as a whole. And it was a great community, you know, 100% reduced to free lunch. You know, so it was a population of people who wanted more, but they needed to have the opportunity to see more.
Okay. And then you came to Virginia. You're now doing, as you said, your pharmaceutical rep work, and you're running for office. Now, this fellow that you're running against, he's only been in there for 2 years, so this is the optimum time to take him out if you want to better represent your district.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you say it well there. This is a great district, and I didn't move here because I wanted to run for office. I just saw an opportunity to be able to impact my community, which is how we got into this. It had nothing to do with how many times he had been elected, but this district, you're right, has only had one election cycle as far as the House of Delegates is concerned. But it's a great district for a Democrat. When you look at the numbers, President Obama won the district 58-41. Tim Kaine receives almost 60% of the vote. You know, when it starts talking about affiliation, there's probably a 2-to-1 advantage, Democrat to Republican. But what this was based on was the concept that Democrats are not going to come out in off-year elections. And so what we're out here doing is we're talking to the families and making sure that you need to be able to show that you're going to come out and you're going to continue to support. This is bigger than just these immediate families here. This is about our future here in Virginia.
Well, I think people are starting to realize that you can come out and vote for President Obama, but if you don't come out the next time, the people that we send to Richmond can frustrate the very things that Obama is trying to do for the country. We see that in Richmond all the time.
Absolutely, and that's been a consistent theme. And the thing that we have these conversations back and forth with people about is the idea that understanding that your state and local politics will affect your day-to-day life more than the presidential election ever will. Now, with Virginia being as transient of a community as it is, what you have a lot of times are people that come from different areas, and they don't necessarily realize that we have an election every single year in Virginia. We're always in election time. So we're trying to get that word out. And when you're knocking on doors and you hear people say, well, I vote in every election, and say, okay, well, did you vote in the governor's election? Well, when is that? So these are the conversations that we're trying to have with people, because if you want to make a difference, we need you to get out there and vote. Your voice has to be heard. And this election right here in November, the eyes are on us. This election is going to dictate what is the midterm elections going to look like? What are they going to look like? Virginia has a great opportunity here to be able to make a difference for us to move forward. And these are the conversations that we're having with the people. This is your chance.
Well, let's talk about education. I'm assuming that that's a big issue because you were a teacher.
Right.
So where do you stand? We've got interesting ideas that float around. We're now grading our schools, and the state can now take over our schools if they fail. We've got all kinds of issues about, are we adequately funding them? What about teachers? What's your views? What's your platform on education like?
When I was the chair of the Young Democrats for Prince William County, I met with the teachers because we held a forum. In Prince William County, the teachers were not going to have the opportunity to get raises for the next 5 years. So what happened was they started talking. They said, well, it's not fair that teachers aren't getting raises. These are the things that we do, so on and so forth. And I met with them and I said, you're absolutely right. But what you have to do is you have to change this conversation. What we need you to do is be able to explain to people what is the impact of teachers not getting raises. What does that mean to your family? What does that mean to your community? What does that mean to the state of Virginia? Those are the type of conversations that we need to have. And what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to bring people together to come up with what is our plan and our vision for the future. When you look at Prince William County as an example, Prince William County is the 8th richest county in the entire United States of America.
I didn't know that.
But our teachers are not paid in the top 1,000.
Wow.
When you look at, let's broaden it, let's look at Virginia as a whole. When you compare average Virginia teacher salary to average Virginia wage, we rank 50 out of 50th in the entire United States. These are the impact, but these are the people that we want to educate our children. These are the people that are going to make the next great minds. But we're not taking an investment. So one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to create regional innovation councils. Now what this does is this brings together your community activists, your community leader, your educators, your business leaders, and it takes this approach. And what this does is it brings them all together and sets them at a table and it says, okay, what are going to be the jobs and the skills of the future? Now by doing that, what that allows us to do is every decision that we make from this moment on is going to be used to hit that goal that we have right here. So what does that impact on our economy? So now jobs can trust that we can bring our companies to Virginia because the skill sets that we are going to need to be successful can be kept right here in Virginia. What we need are people who are not looking at K through 12 issues, but are looking more so towards K through 20 solutions. We need people that are solution oriented when it comes to education.
All right. That sounds like an actually amazing idea because people do seem to focus on just high school, but there is more than that we need to be focusing on to be competitive and let our kids be competitive for jobs.
Absolutely.
Well, there was something else I read that I thought was interesting. My son's a veteran, so anytime I see somebody getting involved in veterans issues, you've got something that you want to do called a Veterans Bill of Rights. What is that about?
Yes, Veterans and Military Bills of Rights for Virginia. This actually came about while we were knocking doors, and you started to realize that every other door you knocked on tended to be a veteran or active military. And when you started listening to the people, you started to realize that they were saying their voice was not being heard. They were going out there and they were sacrificing themselves for us, but they didn't feel like we were investing in them. You know, the fact that they could go to states like Texas or California where their children could go to school for free, but not here in Virginia. And what we have to do, again, it's going back to looking at this as an investment. This would help us for generations to come. We want to keep these people here in Virginia. So one of the things that we wanted to look to do was to create a private-public transition. When we were talking to some of these veterans, they were saying, well, you know, when it came time for us to transition from the military, we didn't feel like we were confident enough making those next steps. And we said, okay, well, this is what we would like to do. We would like to create an office that would help them transition into the private sector, because the skills that they were learning in the military, you know, focusing on science, leadership, management, technology, these are things that would boost our overall economy and help us continue to grow. You know, Virginia is a place that we want people to say, I wish I lived there. And the first step is being able to, one, focus on our education, and two, look out for the people and the families for which we have here. Virginia is a place that we want you to live.
Well, that would be a good conversation to have, because we certainly have taken via Richmond some actions that say to folks, we don't really welcome everybody here.
Absolutely.
And that needs to be fixed, I think, in order for us to regain our #1 position.
Absolutely.
As a place for business, because we have fallen. Well, in our last minute or two that we've got, what about transportation? You're down in Prince William, you're right down by all the highways, the backup. What did you think of last year's transportation bill?
Well, I thought the transportation bill was something that needed to happen. I thought we could all agree to that something needed to be done. But we needed to address the fact that we could have gone further, and especially when you look at House District 2. Now, what they did was, when they created the sales tax line was drawn around Prince William County. So one half of the district receives the sales tax, the other part of the district does not deal with the sales tax. So that's what separates. It's a tale of two cities. When you look at things like $300 million went to Metro, but it went to the Silver Line. So we're paying for it, but we're not having the opportunity to utilize it. That's taxation without representation at this point.
Okay.
You know, but when you look at the hybrid tax, which initially was going to be $100 to families who owned a hybrid vehicle, you know, which eventually got reduced to $64. You know, but these are people who are helping us break, you know, our curse of being drawn to gasoline and oil. You know, but we're charging them extra for that. What we needed someone to step up and have a voice and say, hey, we deserve more. If we're going to give $300 million to Metro that goes over to the Silver Line, it needs to come here to House District 2, because my families deserve it.
All right. Well, Michael, you are clearly passionate about all of these issues, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm very glad you're able to come, and once you get elected, I will invite you back to talk about what you're doing down in Richmond. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You have a great day.
You too.